نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه. I intend to study and teach, to take and give reminders, benefit and assistance, and to inspire myself and others to hold fast to the book of Allah and the sunnah of his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to call to guidance and direct to goodness, seeking the countenance of Allah, his pleasure, nearness and reward. Okay, so the same thing, we're not going to spend too much time on revision because we're finding that it's taking too much time into the session and we want to try and cover a little bit more. So hopefully we can do the revision more towards the end of the session if we have time. Okay, so we went through the angels yesterday. We went through 7 different angels and then we were going to go on to the next page. So just bear with me as I bring it up, inshallah. Have we gone through this one, the recitation of Salah? Anyone know whether we've gone through it? Okay, let's go through it. If we have, we haven't, I'm not sure. Okay, so it is page, no we haven't, okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, so it is page number 49 maybe in your books, it's 48 in my book, sorry. So this is about, remember how we talked about in your salah, we're noticing or we're trying to learn which bits are fard, which bits are sunnah muakkada, which bits are wajib, and so forth. So we've already learned that the intention in our salah is something that is fard. Okay, so if we were to have our intention, what is this book? Somebody please share it. And then if you're not in the group already, leave your number and I will add you into the group, inshallah. So the first one being the intention being fard. The second one being the takbir, which is fard. Okay, and then you got subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika, which is sunnah muakkada. And then a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, which is sunnah muakkada. The basmala, which is a sunnah muakkada. And then we have Surah Fatiha, which is wajib. The surah that you read afterwards is also wajib. Remember, it can be any surah, minimum of 3 ayahs. And now we're going into the bit where you've recited your surah, you recited your Surah Fatiha, then you've done your surah, and then normally you would say Allahu Akbar, and then you would go into your ruku position. So the Allahu Akbar bit is fard. Okay, so it's not something you choose to say or choose not to say. It's fard, you have to say it. Okay, so just reading a little bit at the top actually before we go into it. Muslims are required to recite certain supplications within their prayers on a daily basis. It is essential that they have recited in the Arabic language through memorization. Correct pronunciation of every letter is very important in order to perfect prayer. Okay, so this goes to those questions that question that is in, are you allowed to have a book open that's telling you how to recite the certain bit like Subhanakallah or Surah Fatiha. Now the ruling in accordance to Hanafi fiqh is that you're not allowed to read from something in your salah. So let's say for example with your Taraweeh, people want to finish the Quran and they want to, if they're praying at home, they'd ideally like to have the Quran open and be in that position and to be reciting and reading from the Quran. In accordance to the Hanafi fiqh, you are not allowed to do so. You have to have memorized everything and then you are reciting it in accordance to your what you've memorized. So that answers that question. So the fard, as I was saying, the Allahu Akbar, the takbir bit, that is fard upon you. Then the Subhana Rabbiyal Azim, we know that we say this 3 times, and that is Sunnah Muakkada. Okay, so it's Sunnah Muakkada for me to say Subhana Rabbiyal Azim, Subhana Rabbiyal Azim, Subhana Rabbiyal Azim. And then I would rise up from my ruku and I would say Sami Allahu liman hamida. Again, this is Sunnah Muakkada. So Allah, what does it mean? So Allah hears those who praise Him. And then you would, going during that standing position, you would say Rabbana lakal hamd, and that again is sunnah muakkada. So a lot of what's in your salah, as you can see, is fard or it is sunnah muakkada. And then you would go down into your sajda and you would say Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, and that is a sunnah muakkada. Okay, and then it mentions, oh sorry, I haven't even brought up the next page. As you can see, I'm a little bit all over the place today. Okay, so I'm on this one. So during the qawma is the bit where you're standing. Okay, so see it as qama, qiyam. A good way to remember it is qiyam means to stand or be in a state of standing. So the qawma is when you're standing still and when your hands are to your side, and that's what it would be when you would say Rabbana lakal hamd. And this is sunnah muakkada. Then you would go down into your sajda and you would say Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, and that is your that is sunnah muakkada for you to say. And now it just says as points to remember from the book that pronunciation, no two letters in the Arabic language sound the same. So it's emphasizing the importance to actually be able to recite your salah in its correct manner, and not for it to be something that is only, like tajweed is not meant to be only applicable to the Quran, it's meant to be also applicable to anything and everything that you recite as a form of ibadah, which is your salah also, which is your du'as also, anything and everything that is from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The elongation bit, it mentions here that no letter is shortened nor stretched except that is governed by a rule. Okay, so the idea that you're not meant to stretch things unless there is a rule that pertains to why you are stretching it. And this is a common mistake.
Rather than that, then you should.
Okay, so, and then it continues saying, certainly the prayers have been prescribed to the believers to be performed at specified times, meaning that when the time of prayer comes in, that is when you should pray. And generally the ruling is that as soon as the time comes in, you should pray. And this is the best etiquette, that you don't delay it, but rather you would pray as soon as the time comes in, as soon as you're in a state of wudu, you would pray there and then, because you don't know whether you'll make it towards the end of that prayer time. And it's that, that consciousness and being aware that you don't know what state you're in, and whether you will still be alive towards the end of that salah time. Okay, so I'm just going to stop that share. And then we are going to go into the next page. Okay, so we've already gone through how to do wudu, okay, and now we are going through the nullifications of wudu, what nullifies it, what breaks your wudu. So it mentioned at the top that it is important to be in the state of wudu when offering prayer, upon reading the Quran, and for the prostration of recitation. So that sajdatun tilawa, you have to be in a state of wudu for it. And also, as you know, that before you pray, you have to be in a state of wudu. Before you touch the Quran, you need to be in a state of wudu. Now, generally, as in to read the Quran, you don't have to be in a state of wudu to be able to read it, if that makes sense. So let's just say, for example, I'm reading from my app on my phone, because I'm not touching the actual Quran. I don't have to be in a state of wudu for that, but it's better for you to be in that state. If you're not in the state of wudu for these acts, they will be performed. They will have to be performed again. So remember, it's the touching of the Quran. Also, as in terms of if you are on your period, if you are not praying, then that does not apply, because you being on your in the sense that you can't read from an app when you are in a state of impurity. If you're on your period and and you are trying to read from an app, that you're not allowed to, in accordance to the fiqh of the Hanafi fiqh. So you are only allowed to, in the Hanafi fiqh, to be able to recite 1 or 2 words. And so if they're broken up, so for example, in the Tajweed classes, we're not reading full ayahs, we are just reading 1 word or another word, or we're breaking up the word, or we're just doing the sounds. And this is allowed when you are menstruating. But if you were to be reciting a full ayah, then that is not permissible. If it is with the intention of reciting. Now, even within the Hanafi fiqh, for studying purposes, you're not allowed to. That's a Maliki opinion for studying purposes. Also for hifz purposes, you're not allowed to. That again is a Maliki opinion. So just being aware of that, because there was somebody that messaged earlier on saying, can I attend the Tajweed classes if I'm on my period? You're allowed to attend and you're allowed to listen to the Quran. You're just not allowed to touch it and read it with the intention that you are receiving reward for the sake of reciting the Quran. Now, if I'm reciting Quran for dua purposes, for example, Surah Fatiha or Qul Huwallahu Ahad, or Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq and Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas, which is normally the protection surahs, then you are allowed to do so even when you are menstruating. You would just avoid saying the word Qul, so you start with A'udhu Billah, and that's one opinion, and another is that you can recite it. There's a question. What about Ayatul Kursi? Yeah, so the same thing. Ayatul Kursi is known as a protection ayah, or that you would recite for the sake of protection. So you are allowed to recite Ayatul Kursi before going to sleep or before leaving the house, because that's normally when Ayatul Kursi is recited for the sake of protection. So you would be allowed to do so. And I've mentioned the 3 qawms already. Okay, so nullifications of wudu. So it says here, remember, first of all, remember, if your wudu breaks while praying, you must immediately stop praying and perform wudu. Okay, so for example, I'm in the masjid and I am praying behind an imam, my taraweeh, for example, and one of these things happened to me, so I break wind, which is a common nullifier, and then I would not be able to complete my 2 rakahs. I would need to literally leave the actual salah and go and do wudu, and then come back, and I would join in if I'm able to do so, and that rak'ah hasn't been completed, or I would do the extra rak'ahs at the end, and we'll go through that inshallah in a little bit more detail as to how you would join on to a salah. But it's the idea that, as in terms of with the first rak'ah, if my wudu breaks in my first rak'ah, and then I would leave that first rak'ah, I would go and do my wudu, I would come back, and then I know that I've missed 1 rak'ah because I've had to leave it, so I would make that up right at the end. So I would say my salams, or just before my salam, I would get up and finish do an extra rak'ah by myself, because the imam has gone on to the next task, or the next rak'ah, not the next task, but you know what I mean. And then, so you would complete it, and then you would say your salams, and then you would join into that prayer. I hope that makes sense, but hopefully I can go through in a little bit more detail. It's not the purpose of today's session. So the checklist, the things that would break your wudu, number 1 is bleeding. So what does that mean by bleeding? If I cut myself here now, and I just poke myself, I get a paper cut, but that blood doesn't start flowing, then that does not break my wudu. It's only when you're bleeding so much so that the blood is flowing. Okay, so again, like as in I get a scratch on my face, and there's like blood that will just sit at the top. It won't actually flow out. Then that would not break my wudu. It's only when it starts flowing. Okay, so remember, it's not just bleeding in its as an overall or universal rule. It's when it's flowing blood. Okay, the next one is using the toilet, meaning that when you actually need to release yourself, then that would break your wudu. You would have to do a fresh one straight after going to the toilet. The next one is passing wind, and as we've already covered, so literally if you pass wind, then you would need to complete a new fresh wudu. Falling asleep. Okay, so falling asleep. Now, if you are an individual that falls asleep and has the ability to fall asleep while being in one state, I love those people, and I'm extremely jealous, but in a halal way, of those people that are able to sit and just close their eyes and fall asleep, and then they'll wake up, and they'll just be in the same position. So those people, for that person that's fallen asleep where the eyes have just closed and then they've woken up, their wudu would not have broken. It's only for those people that have laid down, and for their body to have been in a relaxed position, and then they've woken up. Those individuals that have slept, their wudu would have been would have broke. That broke. Does that make any sense? You know what I mean. So it would be broken, and so it's the idea that, as in, when the limbs are loose, you are more likely to pass wind. Whereas if you're in that state, as I was mentioning, where you're very upright and you've just closed your eyes, technically your body is still stiff and it's not in a relaxed position, and for that reason, it would not break your wudu. So you'd be able to just open your eyes and pray if you needed to pray, and that's that. The next one is vomiting a mouthful or more. Okay, so remember, it's not just slightly just vomiting, it has to be a full mouthful. What does it mean by mouthful? Meaning that if that person was to close their mouth, they wouldn't be able to keep it closed. They literally, it needs to come out. So it's literally a mouthful, or a handful, if you want to say, with the idea that it can't stay in your mouth. Whereas there's those people that will slightly vomit, it'll come slightly to the top of their throat, and they'll feel it, and it's a little bit gross, and then they'll just kind of swallow it, and that would not break your wudu. Okay, so remember, it has to be a mouthful. Becoming insane. Okay, so again, you know, there's different ways of how an individual can become insane. Sometimes it's anger to such an extent that you become slightly crazy, or whether it's for whatever reason, those people that have you know, mental health issues or something of that sort, then their wudu would have broken, because again, it's the idea that they're not in control of their body, they're not in control of the state that you need to be in for you to be in for the sake of wudu. The next one is laughing loudly in prayer. So this is a common one, you know, as in terms of, again, like if you're in a room and you think about something, or you remember something, or there's a child that comes in and does something silly in front of you, and you can't help it, but you just laugh, that actually breaks your wudu. It doesn't just break your salah, it breaks your wudu. Okay, so it's very important that you understand that. Laughing loudly, meaning that you can hear yourself. Now, if you smile, just like you know, you're in you're praying and you just smile, then that does not break your wudu. It's when you can slightly hear yourself, and then you're, you know, or you know, you're one of those individuals that laugh very much out loud, and you can't control it, then this would actually break your wudu. So you need to, because I know people that end up realizing that their prayer, they break their prayer, but then they just start a new prayer again. It's not valid for you to just start your next prayer. You have to literally go and do wudu and come back and then start your salah again. Okay, so just answering some of the question, does discharge break wudu? So again, it depends on what type of discharge we're talking about. If it's a discharge where it is something that relates to your period, so if it's the last bit, and so you're still, that would be classified as a major impurity, and you wouldn't be praying and you wouldn't be doing wudu in that state anyway. I'm assuming that you're referring to the clear discharge, and the clear discharge does not break your wudu. Okay, so that's the one where you would use a panty liner, and the idea is that it is actually a clear, it's not an impurity, but because of the oxidization and so forth, that's what makes it a slightly yellow color. But in reality, it's actually a clear fluid that comes out of your body, and that would not break your wudu. If you can see your blood, will it break your wudu? As in, your blood isn't dripping. If it's not flowing, if it's not dripping, then no, it does not break your wudu. Okay, so remember, as I said, like imagine I have a cut here, or I have, like, as in I've slightly grazed myself, or literally cut myself. I can see the blood coming to, you know, its surface, but it's not moving away from that area that it's being cut from. So again, paper cut would be a nice example, that you can see the blood that comes to its surface, but it's not flowing, and so for that reason, you would not need to redo your wudu. Okay, so that is our nullifications of wudu. We will continue hopefully into another one if we can. Okay, Kanwal, you were told that clear discharge does break wudu. I will check it again for you, but as far as I've been taught, it does not break wudu, but I will come back to you inshallah if you feel I need to check it again, and that's fine. Okay, so we're just going to go through a surah because we want to try and get through this book. This one is Surah Falak. Just going to go through some of the vocab. Okay, so we're just going to read through it. Those of you who are memorizing it, then please do continue to memorize it. And you will find that this vocab will become nice and easy for you as you start reading more Quran. So the qul means say. A'udhu, as we know from A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, is I seek refuge. Bi Rabb. So just so that you know, the B in the Bi Rabb is the bit that means with, and then Rabb means Lord. Al-Falak is daybreak. Okay, the daybreak. You know, so remember, I don't know whether I've taught it before, but the alif and lam at the start of a word is the equivalent of the English the. So if this word would just said falak, it would mean daybreak, but because of the alif lam that's attached to the start of it, it means the daybreak. Then we have min, which means from. Shar, which we've already covered, means evil or something that's bad. Ma means what. Khalaq means he created. Wa means and, which we've already gone through. Min means from. Shar is evil. Again, ghasikin is darkness. Idha is when. Waqab is it spreads. And that's the verb. And then the wa again means and. Min means from. Shar means evil. And nafathat are the blowers. Okay, so this is really referring to those individuals that perform black magic, those that blow evil into the knots. Okay, so the blowers, as you can see, as in the format of the Arabic language is different to English, but essentially it's saying, and from the evil of the blowers who would blow evil into. So the in is the fi, and then al-uqad is the knot. So again, knots itself is uqad. The alif and lam means the knots, and then you got wa, which means and, min, which means from, shar means evil, hasidin is envier, idha is when, hasad is he envies, and that's the verb. Okay. Is it worth us doing another page? We've got 4 minutes. Let's leave it and let's just do a quick recap of the other topics that we've gone through, and then anyone that needs to go, that's absolutely fine. So just going through the prophets. So somebody just quickly tell me how many prophets are mentioned in the Quran. 25. So who was the father of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam? You're at 35. Okay, remember it's 25. Yeah, or was it just a typo? Okay, so Yaqub alayhi salam is the father of Yusuf alayhi salam. How many sons did Ibrahim alayhi salam have? 2. Well done. One was Ismail and one was Ishaq. What was the name of the mother of Ismail alayhi salam? Is it Hajar or is it Sarah? Okay, so Hajar is Ismail alayhi salam's mother, and Sarah is Ishaq alayhi salam's mother. What number surah is Surah Lut? 66, well done. How tall was Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam? 90 feet, yeah, you're never going to forget that one. The name of the prophet who built the ark? Easy. Nuh alayhi salam. The story of the name of the prophet was the story of the she-camel coming from the stone. Was Salih alayhi salam. The name of the surah in which Sayyidina Idris alayhi salam is mentioned? Surah Maryam, well done. In which heaven did the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam meet? Sayyidina Idris. Yep, the fourth. And what number surah is Surah Hud? 11. Okay, and just quickly, we're just gonna, if you can just shout out behind your screen, we're gonna go through the order of the fiqh terminology. The top for the do's is fard, then wajib, then sunnah muakkada, sunnah ghayr muakkada, mustahab. Okay, and then the opposites, top being haram, makruh tahrimi, isa'a, makruh tanzihi, khilaf al-awla. Okay, so that is the quick recap. For those who are asking, this is the book. If somebody can just quickly put up the website that someone can access the book from. If you're from Derby, then you are welcome to send me a message and I will try and get one to your house, inshallah.